I'm joined now by Dr. Alexandra de Hoop Scheffer. She's the director of the German Marshall Fund's Paris office. Thank you very much for joining us here on the programme, Alexandra. We're just hearing there from my colleague in Kyiv, who was talking about these bold claims that President Macron is talking about, the flurry of diplomacy that he is engaged in. So the question then is, with him being the first Western European leader to go to Moscow, how serious a player really is he in all of this?
Well, I think, today is very different from the 2014 context. We all remember President Obama back in 2014 outsourcing the mediating role in the Ukraine-Russia crisis to the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel. You have a very different German context today. You have the German Chancellor Scholz, who's basically taking a backseat. You have, as you just mentioned, a US-UK hardline approach, and therefore France puts itself naturally, if I can say, in the lead in leading this diplomatic effort from the front. The aim of President Macron is to show that it can complement the US-Russia dialogue. The aim is to remind that what is at stake here is first and foremost European security, and that therefore Europeans have a role, a very active role to play in the diplomatic effort.
So are you saying then that in some way President Macron is trying to fill Chancellor Merkel's shoes?
Basically, I would summarize it that way. He's playing a role of facilitator, facilitating a potential compromise. The seat is vacant, if I can say. So you can add to that also the fact that France has the presidency of the EU Council. So that adds also a layer, if I can say, of diplomatic legitimacy to President Macron. And basically, it's also part of this continuum in French diplomacy towards Moscow. We all remember one of President Macron's first diplomatic initiative was actually to host President Putin in France, in Versailles.
Do they have the same kind of relationship, though, that Angela Merkel and Putin had? Of course, because she had quite personal connections to the region and her own childhood. So it just shaped her worldview a little bit differently.
Absolutely. No, they don't have the same type of relationship. But Macron has been, at the same time, very firm, especially on the interferences, Russian interferences in the French presidential election back in 2017, while always keeping the door open to consistent dialogue. And today, Macron has also relaunched the so-called Normandy format, which engages France, Germany, Russia, and Ukraine on the Donbass issue. And that is going to be part of the conversation with Putin, but also tomorrow with Zelensky. So there's a very, I would say, logical sequence to Macron's diplomatic initiative this week.
Yeah, my colleague Paul Adams was also saying that it's almost like they're trying to create some kind of diplomatic shield around Ukraine. But is the feeling that the United States is using language and rhetoric that is frankly dangerous at this point in time?
Well, there is a sense here in Paris, but basically all across Europe and in Kyiv, as your reporter just reminded a few minutes ago, of an over-exaggeration of the military threat posed by Russia today, and that there is still space for a diplomatic solution. And so this is something that we have in common with the Ukrainians, with a lot of our European partners. And the aim of Macron as well is not to take a unilateral initiative with Putin. He was very careful to also consult very actively with all France's European partners, plus President Biden before heading to Moscow. And that, if I can say, is the lessons learned that Macron has taken from previous initiatives of engaging with Moscow, because this has been irritating a lot of our Eastern, Baltic, Scandinavian partners. And so he learned from that. And so the consultative dimension of Macron's diplomatic approach is something quite new in the French politics.
Dr. de Hoop Scheffer, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme.